Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and this is the dedicated SERSI transcended character review video. But we're starting it off with a twist. I want to show you guys an alternative rotation that I figured out for SERSI specifically against Null. And it doesn't matter how you build your SERSI, whether she has an offensive build for PvE with an obelisk or CTP, or whether you built her for PvP. If you want to have fun with her versus Null, check this out. So we're going to start off, in this case we're doing a raw damage test here, but we're going to start out and we're actually going to skip the transcended skill on the first rotation. All right, I know you're probably yelling at me, what's going on, Alex, you crazy? The thing is, SERSI, like Sharon Rogers, like War Machine, Luke Cage, etc., she has accumulation on damage taken, not damage dealt. And unlike those characters that I just named, she is a transcended, besides Luke Cage, she's a transcended character. So that transcended skill is going to be on a 30-second cooldown as soon as you hit it. So rather than using the little attack that he does at 4 minutes and 56 seconds, he does a little slam with his sword. Rather than taking that accumulation and landing my first proc, he does an attack later on at about 4:48 where he will send this like spiky thing, this like rock thing at you. Check it out. He's about to do it. Here we go. And here is where we're going to accumulate. Look at this. And bada bing, bada boom. We just skipped. Look at that. This is so good. This is so good that I highly encourage you to use it. You basically skip her transcendent skill on the first rotation, and then on the second rotation, you land it. And she accumulates all that damage of that thing passing by, and she does like a huge burst of damage. Because if you were to do this rotation, if you were to do your first rotation with the awakening skill, you're going to do maybe 5-6 bars of damage. Instead, I've done what, 12 bars of damage, 14 bars of damage? It's like almost triple. It's bananas. And if you liken it to Sharon Rogers, you can actually speed through. There's a few rotations out there that get you to build up Sharon Rogers tier 3 on the second rotation. There's rotations for Sharon Rogers where you can get that accumulation just before the tier 3. So it's the same basic principle, except rather than going super duper fast with SERSI, we're going, or with Sharon Rogers, you're going super duper slow with SERSI. Now there I tried to dodge the cage with her co-op skill, and I wasn't able to. But there's actually a lot of things that I find really interesting about SERSI. I think she's a much more interesting character overall than Ikaris is, despite the fact that, like Ikaris, I do think that there are better characters out there. I don't think she's the best. I don't think she's the best, but that's actually my best run. So we're going to keep this. I want to show you what she can do on stage 9. What I'm trying to say is I don't think she's the best blast transcended character. Like some people are saying she's better than Moonstone. I don't think that's likely. I think at her best, she can be better than Moonstone, but I think that's very unlikely. Now, if you get the proper accumulation, as you can see, yes. So, you know, she's sort of like Moonstone and Sharon Rogers, kind of, but more like Moonstone and War Machine. She's not going to be as consistently good as Moonstone because of the fact that she has to accumulate like War Machine, but when she does properly accumulate, then she's going to be more like Sharon Rogers, who's actually even better than Moonstone. So it really depends a little bit on RNG, and I know some people don't want to hear that, but that's honestly the truth. And this is basically the rotation, and you can see it can do massive damage when you get it to rock, but of course getting it to rock is not always a sure bet. Now you can just straight up take damage on purpose to accumulate, and she can do massive damage, and if you're on a lower stage, you can just take the damage, so there's also that possibility. As you can see here, we're gonna just casually rock out 2 bars, so we're actually pretty close with SERSI with using no leadership and only her own support buffs, because she does have a support buff with her new uniform, and I believe it's a 160 damage proc obelisk. We're able to almost do, we're pretty close, we're not almost there, but we're pretty close to doing the 100-second challenge, which I honestly think is really impressive for her. However, like I said, I do think there are more consistent characters out there, and I do think that your ability to accumulate is really going to be the difference maker between SERSI being a stellar character and being a sort of below average, not below average, above average character. She is, I will say this, kind of like War Machine, she's very, very good for this last phase. You're going to do 6, 3, 5, 4. And he's gone. Yeah. You do 6 first because it gives you invincibility. She has invincibility on 6 and on 4. But what I said that I like about SERSI and what I think is really interesting about SERSI is that there's actually multiple ways to play her. So I just showed you that trick there against Null. I love it. Basically, you just delay her transcended skill to the second rotation. Any other content creator out there, you can definitely use that one. You don't have to credit me. It's honestly a huge game changer for her, and I love it. But I really like the fact that she is way tankier than a lot of other blast types out there, you know, and despite the fact that she's going to be a little bit inconsistent because of the accumulation, I still think that she has a level of consistency to her that other blast types don't have, besides maybe Sharon Rogers. So I am putting her in like a high category, even though my praise doesn't necessarily sound like I think she's as good as Moonstone and Sharon Rogers. I just want to sort of, you know, put your expectations at a proper level, so you're not thinking like, yo, Cersei's the next Moonstone plus Sharon Rogers, bro. If you can play her perfectly, yeah, maybe. If you can't play her perfectly, then she's gonna, you know, drop below that a certain number of degrees. But she actually has a lot of things going for her with this new uniform that make her really good. Now, I've already covered in the previous video when I did the tier 2 breakdowns of Ikaris, Cersei, and Makkari, that when you don't have this uniform versus having it, you could see her damage decline because of the way that her charm works versus bosses like Cull Obsidian, who you can charm infinitely. You're not going to see that being the case when you fight Null and Mephisto, but it doesn't really matter because I don't think you're going to transcend her without buying the uniform and going all the way sort of thing. So I would say that if you're not going to build up Cersei, you can skip the uniform, but if you are going to build up Cersei, you should definitely get the uniform. She gets increased recovery rate, which helps her healing. She gets damage reduction, which is also good. And then she gets a bunch of buffs. So she gets this passive buff that makes her support, a 30-30 support, which is almost as good as Shuri, someone like that, which is really, really good. And then she gets the debuff. The debuff is really good. It means you're not going to get stunned by Null. You're not going to get bound by the, like, you're not going to hit that bind from the tornadoes. And then it's going to be way easier against Mephisto because you're not going to get that burn damage. Now, it also means that she's going to have a little bit of a harder time accumulating against Mephisto because she's cleansing those debuffs, but you sort of have to take the good with the bad. But overall, she is, in my opinion, an above average blast type with a really fun rotation that you can actually do in different ways, and I'll show you guys that in a second. And she also has, I think, some of the best potential for being a PvP character in a blast type that we've seen since probably Mephisto. We rarely see blast types that are good in PvP, despite how many good combat types we get for PvP, like Hulk, Luke Cage, Wolverine. Really, this is just Blast, Jean Grey, and Mephisto. There's very, very few blast types that actually make it into the PvP meta long term, because MFF loves to make blast types really good for PvE, like Moonstone, like Sharon Rogers, like so many other characters. They just love to make them good for PvE, and not for PvP. So I think Cersei has, not Makkari, Cersei has a really good opportunity to be really good for PvP, not to mention the fact, so I've mentioned all the passives and things, but I'm not going to spend too much time on this one, but if you haven't checked out her artifact, it's bonkers. It gives her a revive. You guys know that a revive basically can instantly make almost any character good for PvP, and that's no different for Cersei, on top of the fact that for transcended characters specifically, when they revive, they instantly pop their transcended skill. Ask Corvus. So that's huge, because when she instantly pops her transcended skill, unless the enemy is playing manually and they know to run away to the other side of the arena, you're going to get an easy kill. And I can try to show you guys that a little bit later in the video, but first I want to show you guys a couple of different ways to play her against Mephisto. We're actually going to try, stage 30 is a little bit difficult for her. I don't think she's as good as speed types versus Mephisto, so I will say that because I wanted to test her out. See, on stage 34, I use this team here with Rogue, and then I use this team here with Silk. They both have a support. One has Valkyrie, one has Wave, and to a lesser extent, Storm. So I tried her here, where she has her own support, right? Her 30% increased damage to villains and 30% decreased damage taken, and a 30% attack, plus she has Scarlet Witch is 45, which is 75, right? I didn't want to give her a second support, but you could do that. I can show you what the damage looks like. She can probably clear stage 34 like that without a CTP, just to really quickly recap the build. So she could be as good as Rogue with a Judgment, or Silk with a paid uniform and an energy using an obelisk, if you can basically give her a support. However, again, that's not the fairest comparison. It is fair in the sense that they have a support. It isn't necessarily fair in the sense that Cersei has then 2 supports worth, but it's fine. It doesn't really matter that much. But see, one thing is, because of the debuff, because of the high defenses, the healing, and the debuff that she has on her passive, she doesn't take that much damage from Mephisto, and all the damage she's taking from Mephisto, she reduces it by 30% because it's a villain, and then she reduces it another 30% just because of her uniform. So she's actually surprisingly tanky against this stage on Mephisto, where both Silk and Rogue can die, and they both have healing. Rogue has a passive healing, and Silk has active healing on her 5th skill and debuff from her 6th skill and from the leadership of Spider-Woman. So what I'm saying is Cersei's really tanky. But here, I'll show you guys a couple of different rotations. So the thing that I figured out with Cersei is that you can actually, her 4th skill is her 4th skill and her 6th skill are really the only ones that you can cancel really quickly. And because you're using a proc with Cersei, you want to be able to cancel your skills because you don't want to accidentally proc on the wrong skill. So a lot of people will do 3, 6, 5, 4. But it actually might make more sense, even though 5 is an iframe, to do 3, 6, 4, 5. Because 4 has a delay and 6 has a delay. Because you'll be basically more successful landing your proc. So you can try out different strategies, but if you're having trouble procking, I found that 3, 6, 4, 5 is so much easier and so much more reliable because of the delay on 4. And I'll show you this again, how there's a delay, but see the bus still comes down and explodes into rose petals. But the reason why people will do, you're asking me, the reason why people will do 3, 5, 4 is because 4 is not an iframe, and you want to be out of iframe so that you take accumulation damage. So you can sort of experiment and see which one suits you better, but honestly I think both are good, and I don't think there should really be an argument made that one is just straight up better than the other. 3, 5, 4 is better for accumulating, but 3, 4, 5 or 3, 6, 4, 5 is much better for landing the proc very well. Like, I have no problems landing the proc. I had to stop talking there to focus, but I have no problems landing the proc with that rotation. Whereas sometimes with the 3, 5, 4 rotation, I sometimes proc on 5 accidentally because it has hits at the very beginning. So yeah, I would say if you have difficulty procking, 3, 4, 5 is a lot nicer. And you can also do 3, 4, 5, 2. You can splash into 2 as well. I'm not as big of a fan of it, but when you have the chain hit damage from a CTP of energy, it may be a lot better. Actually, you know what? I don't even know if she could do this. I don't even know if she can do 34 with these double buffs here. She may need a CTP. Yeah, see, she doesn't have any chain hit on her kit, so she's really not taking advantage of all these stacked hits. If she did have chain hit, this would be a different story, I think, because she's doing a clean, like, she's doing almost 3 bars. So I'm really suspecting that Thena or one of the other Eternals is going to have a buff that gives all Eternals chain hit damage. I'm guessing there's going to be an Eternal that gives like 20% chain hit damage to all Eternals, and I think that combined with Cersei's natural canceling is going to make her a huge powerhouse. Look at this. She takes very little damage from Mephisto, and then she's just going to be able to shrug it off. Most characters I know would straight up die. I think I goofed up the rotation. I'm not 100% sure. Most characters I know on this stage would die if they did that, if they tried to tank that attack. Nice. So against Mephisto and Null specifically, they will still attack you during iframes sometimes. So it's fine to do 3, 4, 5. Because see, I'm still taking damage here, so I'm still accumulating, so I'm still rocking it. But again, it really depends on how you play, and it depends on who you're fighting. Like what boss you're fighting against. Here, we didn't really get much accumulation, and this is why she is going to be a little bit inconsistent compared to some other characters. But still very, very good. I'd still say she's probably, overall, she's top 5 in the blast category, especially amongst blast females, and she's super fast. Did I miss that one? No, I didn't miss my proc there. Just not a lot of damage, but I didn't miss my proc. No, I'm confusing the damage proc with the insight proc. But yeah, I don't think she can do this, which is actually kind of blowing me away. There, I missed my proc. I don't think she can do this stage. We're about 30 seconds off on the time, and I don't know how we're going to get it back. With all of the buffs, right? She's got 90% increased damage to villains, 30% from herself, and 60% from White Fox. She does so much damage when you do the 6, though. It's just so much burst damage when you do the 6. It's crazy. See, here I almost want to get hit because of the accumulation, right? But yeah, on the other hand, she can get out of the stun because she has the debuff on her passive, and she's so fast. She's so fast. That damage is not good, man. What was that? Oh, that hurt. That hurt a lot. I feel like she can do it, though. But I'm just off by a little bit, eh? That last transcended proc was not good. I'm not really sure why it was so bad, but it was bad. Maybe we needed just a little bit of accumulation. We got none. I don't know. Accumulation on damage taking characters are tough. Yeah, it's like less than 2 bars now for some reason. I see if it's like an extra damage reduction that he stacks up. We're not gonna make it here, but let's just see. Maybe we can. Who knows? Oh, there I didn't even press 3, so I didn't get the accumulation whatsoever. But we are actually gonna have to, if we have any chance of this, we are gonna need to. No, we're gonna run out of time. Okay, so we ran out of time there. I'm a little bit surprised. Now she does have an obelisk instead of a CTP, but with the amount of support that she had, I really thought she could make it work. I think you could probably quite easily clear that with a CTP of energy, especially if you can roll a 200 proc, because of the 30%, like having no chain hit versus having 30% chain hit. With the number of hits she's doing, like well over 100 hits on the 3, 6, 4, 5 combo is huge. Like the chain hit on that is huge, and we know the synergy with Pierce and stuff like that. So I would recommend, and I will be trying her with an energy later on, but I do think that she's a little bit underrated, but definitely a little bit harder to play than some of the characters she's going to be compared to. As difficult as I think Moonstone is to play, Moonstone's issue is more just about canceling fast enough and being in a position where the boss doesn't move, so that the boss gets hit by all of your attacks. That's a little bit easier to do, especially with practice, whereas SERSI's, you have to get hit, but then not to the point of getting interrupted or guard broken, but then you still have to execute your rotation. That can be a lot more difficult, which is why still we see, you know, issues with characters with accumulation coming out, you know, Doom, War Machine, etc. I think she's easier to play than Doom. I think she's easier to play than War Machine, which means I think she's better, you know, especially for players who don't want to spend hours and hours practicing. But she may not have as much of a ceiling damage-wise as Doom, and I think she's going to be a little bit behind Moonstone and Sharon Rogers overall, unless you can play her perfectly. So yeah, that's the guide, and that's sort of the review for SERSI. Sorry I didn't get to show you guys the PvP, but believe me, it's really cool when you kill her and then she revives and pops her Transcended skill and just murks you with a Makkari running around. I do think she has a lot of potential, and I do think, unlike Ikaris, she's a much more complete character on her own. And if nothing else, right, for Ikaris, if you buy his uniform, you're just getting a leadership for the Eternals. With SERSI, you're getting a leadership, or not leadership, but you're getting basically the combined value of a leadership and a support in one. And the best part is she doesn't need to be in the leadership slot to give you that. So for example, you can go back to that Mephisto stage, and you can go all the way up here to 39, where you need to use leadership characters, and you can run it with Makkari. And you can run it with this team right here. And so Makkari's giving, SERSI's giving Makkari 30% attack, 30% increased damage to villains, 30% damage reduced from villains, and the debuff, which is crazy good. So she's giving way more than Ikaris is giving. And if I could only choose one of them to be on the team with Makkari, obviously I would choose SERSI. So in that sense as well, I think she's got her lover Ikaris sort of beaten already. So yeah, hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you think of SERSI. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.